Jinha Park sat in his small room on Nexus Prime Trading Station. The walls were gray metal, cold to the touch. A single window showed the endless black of space dotted with distant stars. He was 347 years old, kept alive by alien medicine that his human body should not have been able to use. But it worked, and he lived. Most days, no one came to see him. The aliens who ran the station forgot he existed. When they did remember, they looked at him like he was something from a museum. The last human in the galaxy, they called him. A living reminder of a dead race. Jinha knew better. The humans were not dead. They were hiding. 300 years ago, humanity had gone silent. No more messages from Earth. No more human ships in space. The galaxy moved on without them. The 12 alien races that made up the Galactic Confederation wrote humans off as another failed species. Too weak, they said. Burned out too fast, they said. Jinha had been there when it happened. He remembered the real reason humanity disappeared. It was not death. It was betrayal. The door to his room opened with a soft hiss. A tall, blue-skinned alien walked in. This was Vex Commander Zol, one of the newest members of the Confederation. The Vex had joined just 50 years ago, and they hated anything that was not Vex. Human, Zol said, his voice like grinding metal. You will come with me. Jinha did not move from his chair. What do you want? The Confederation Council has made a decision. You are the last of your kind. A biological threat. Tomorrow you will be executed. Jinha felt his heart beat faster, but his face showed nothing. He had lived too long to show fear now. And what threat do I pose sitting in this room? Zol's eyes glowed red. Your species was a disease, unpredictable, dangerous. We should have removed you all centuries ago. Tomorrow we fix that mistake. The alien left without another word. The door closed, leaving Jinha alone again. He walked to his window and looked out at space. Somewhere out there, his people were waiting. They had been waiting for 300 years, growing stronger in the dark between the stars. Jinha pressed a small button hidden under his desk. A message went out on a frequency no alien knew existed. 3 words: the fire burns. Far from Nexus Prime, in a system the star map said was empty, Harin Choi guided her salvage ship through an asteroid field. The ship looked old and broken on the outside, but inside it was filled with technology the aliens had never seen. Harin was Jinha's great-granddaughter, though she had never met him. She was 28 years old with black hair and sharp eyes. Like all humans born in the hidden colonies, she had been changed. Her body could adapt to any environment in minutes. Her mind could connect directly to her ship's computers. She was more than human, but still completely human. Harin, said a voice in her head. It was her ship's AI, speaking through the neural link. Message coming in on the old frequency. Play it, she said. 3 words filled her mind. The fire burns. Harin smiled, but it was not a happy smile. It was the smile of a predator who had been waiting to hunt. Send the message to all cells, she said. Phoenix Protocol is active. Across 47 hidden human colonies, the message spread. In asteroid mines where humans had worked in secret. On rogue planets where they had built cities. In space stations hidden in the dark between stars. Everywhere humans had been living, growing, and planning for this day. The galaxy was about to remember why they had been afraid of humanity in the first place. Commander Quan Li stood in the Confederation military archives, deep in the heart of Central Command. As a high-ranking officer in the peacekeeping force, he had access to files most beings never saw. Tonight he was looking for answers about the humans. Quan was from the Altarian species. Tall, thin, with silver skin and large black eyes. His people had joined the Confederation early and had always been loyal. But lately, Quan had been asking questions that his superiors did not like. He found the file he was looking for. Human Containment Protocol, classified level Omega. What he read made his blood run cold. The humans had not died out naturally. The Confederation had planned it. They had cut off human trade routes. They had blocked human messages. They had made sure humanity was isolated and alone. The plan was to let them die slowly, naturally, so no one would ask questions. But the files also showed something else. The humans had not died. They had simply vanished. All at once, every human settlement had gone quiet. Not destroyed, just empty. Quan found another file. Human Evolutionary Rate Analysis. The report was 300 years old, written by the Confederation's best scientists. It said that humans adapted faster than any species ever discovered, too fast. In just a few thousand years, they had gone from cave dwellers to space travelers. If left alone, the report said, humans would surpass every other species in the galaxy within centuries. That was why the Confederation had moved against them. Not because humans were weak, but because they were too strong. Quan heard footsteps in the hallway. He quickly closed the files and tried to look busy with other work. But he could not forget what he had read. The humans were out there somewhere. And if they were anything like the report said, they had spent 300 years getting stronger. Back on Nexus Prime, Jinha sat in the darkness of his room. In a few hours, the sun would rise on the station's artificial day cycle. Then they would come for him. He thought about his long life. 3.5 centuries of pretending to be the last of his kind. 3.5 centuries of gathering information, making contacts, and preparing for this moment. The aliens thought they knew humans. They remembered Earth humans. The ones who asked for permission, who followed rules, who tried to fit in with galactic society. Those humans were gone. The humans who remained had been forged in the cold dark between stars. They had been shaped by 3 centuries of hiding, of surviving, of planning. They were still human, but they were also something the galaxy had never seen before. Jinha's door chimed. A message appeared on his wall screen. It was from the Confederation Council. Jinha Park, last human. Your execution is scheduled for 0800 station time. Any last words will be recorded for historical archive. Jinha smiled. He typed a simple reply. Tell the galaxy this. You wanted us extinct. You should have made sure. He sent the message and leaned back in his chair. Outside his window, space looked calm and empty. But Jinha knew better. His people were coming. The fire that had driven humanity to the stars had never gone out. It had just been burning quietly in the dark, waiting for the right moment to blaze again. Tomorrow the galaxy would see that fire, and they would remember why some things should be left alone. Jinha closed his eyes and waited for dawn. The last day of the old galaxy was about to begin, and the first day of humanity's return. Heron's ship moved through space like a ghost. One moment it was there, the next it seemed to fade away. The hull changed color to match the stars behind it. Inside, Heron prepared for something the galaxy had never seen before. How many ships do we have ready? She asked her AI. 47 strike teams across the sector. All teams report ready. Phoenix Protocol is fully active. Heron nodded. For 300 years, humanity had been preparing for this day. They had built ships that could bend light around them. They had grown soldiers whose bodies could change to survive any attack. They had learned to turn their greatest weakness, being unpredictable, into their greatest weapon. Send the message to all teams, she said. Operation begins in 1 hour. Target, Nexus Prime. Mission, retrieve the old man and show them what humans really are. Across space, 46 other human ships received the message. Their crews were not the same humans the galaxy remembered. These humans had been changed by centuries of living in harsh places. Their bodies could adapt to any environment in minutes. Their minds could link directly to their ships. They were still human, but they were also something new, something the aliens had never seen before. On Nexus Prime, Jinha was taken from his room at exactly 800 hours. 2 alien guards walked beside him through the metal corridors of the station. They thought he was just an old human, weak and harmless. They were wrong. Jinha had spent 300 years on this station. He knew every corridor, every system, every weakness. And today, his people were coming for him. The execution chamber was large and round with seats for important aliens to watch. Jinha saw Vex Commander Zol standing near the front, his red eyes glowing with satisfaction. Other alien leaders sat in their seats talking quietly among themselves. They all stopped talking when Jinha was brought in. Citizens of the Confederation, announced the station commander, a fat alien with 4 arms. Today we remove the last biological threat of the human species. This creature represents a failed evolutionary path. Its removal will make the galaxy safer for all civilized species. Jinha was strapped to a metal table in the center of the room. Above him, a large energy weapon pointed down at his chest. One shot would turn him to ash. Any last words, human? Asked Vex Commander Zol. Jinha looked up at the weapon. then at all the alien faces watching him. He smiled. "I have just one thing to say," Jinha said, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber. "You should have killed us all when you had the chance." The aliens laughed. What could one old human do? Then the lights went out. Harin's ship appeared directly above Nexus Prime, dropping out of some kind of dimensional fold that made space ripple like water. But it was not alone. 46 other ships materialized around the station, surrounding it completely. The station's defense systems tried to lock onto the human ships, but the targeting computers could not get a fix. The ships seemed to exist in several dimensions at once, flickering in and out of normal space. "This is Nexus Prime Control," came a panicked voice over the radio. "Unidentified ships, identify yourselves immediately or we will open fire." Harin opened a communication channel to the entire station. Her voice was calm, cold, and completely terrifying. "This is Harin Choi of the Human Defense Fleet. You have something that belongs to us. Give us Jinha Park, and we might let some of you live." The station commander's voice crackled back. "There is no human defense fleet. Humans are extinct. You cannot be real." "Then you have nothing to worry about," Harin said. "Open fire." The station's weapons shot out streams of energy at the human ships. The beams passed right through them like they were made of air. Then the human ships became solid again and returned fire. But their weapons were like nothing the aliens had ever seen. Instead of energy beams or missiles, they fired something that looked like liquid light. When it hit the station's shields, the shields did not break. They changed. They turned from defensive barriers into weapons that began attacking the station itself. Inside the execution chamber, the aliens were screaming and running for the exits. The energy weapon above Jinha sparked and died as the station's power failed. Jinha smiled and closed his eyes. "Right on time," he whispered. Commander Quan Li was in the Confederation Military Command Center when the reports started coming in. At first he thought it was a mistake. "Sir," said his aide, a young alien with green skin, "we're getting reports of unknown ships attacking Nexus Prime." "Unknown ships?" Quan asked. "What species? Pirates?" "That's just it, sir. They claim to be human." Quan felt his heart skip. He had been reading about humans just the night before. "Show me the tactical display." The hologram showed Nexus Prime surrounded by 47 ships. But the ships kept disappearing and reappearing in different places. Sometimes they looked solid, sometimes they were transparent. The station's weapons could not hit them. "This is impossible," said the aide. "No species has this kind of technology." Quan watched as one of the human ships seemed to fold in half, then appeared inside the station's docking bay. "Impossible. Ships could not teleport through solid matter." "Get me a direct line to Nexus Prime," Quan ordered. The communication came through filled with static and screaming. "This is Nexus Prime. We are under attack. The humans are inside the station." "How are they inside the station?" Another voice cut through the chaos. Calm, cold, female. "Attention all aliens on Nexus Prime. This is your only warning. We came for one man. Give him to us or we take him anyway and you all die." Quan knew he should order the fleet to Nexus Prime to help. That was his duty as a Confederation officer. But the files he had read the night before kept playing in his mind. The humans had not been the aggressors 300 years ago. They had been the victims. "Sir?" asked his aide. "Orders?" Quan looked at the tactical display. The human ships were not firing on civilian areas. They were only hitting military targets. Even now, they were showing more mercy than the Confederation had shown them. "Stand down," Quan said quietly. "Sir?" "I said stand down. Do not send reinforcements to Nexus Prime." The aide looked confused but followed orders. Quan continued watching the battle, knowing he was about to see something that would change the galaxy forever. Inside Nexus Prime, Harin moved through the corridors like a shadow. Her body had adapted to the station's artificial gravity and atmosphere automatically. Her skin had changed color to match the walls. Her eyes could see in the dark. Behind her came 12 other humans, all moving with the same impossible stealth. They did not look entirely human anymore. Their bodies had evolved, adapted, become something new. But their eyes still held that human fire, the thing that made them refuse to give up. They found Jinha in the execution chamber, still strapped to the metal table. The alien guards were gone, fled when the lights went out. "Took you long enough," Jinha said as Harin cut his bonds. "Sorry, great-grandfather. Traffic was heavy." Jinha laughed, the first real laugh he had enjoyed in decades. "Are you ready to give them our message?" "Already prepared," Harin said. She helped him to his feet. "The whole galaxy is watching." Together they walked to the chamber's main communication console. Harin connected her neural interface to the system, instantly taking control of every broadcast network on the station. Jinha looked into the camera and spoke to the galaxy that had tried to forget his people. 300 years ago, you decided we were too dangerous to live. You cut us off from the galaxy. You tried to let us die quietly in the dark. You thought you had won." His voice grew stronger, filled with the fire that had driven humanity to the stars. "But humans do not die quietly. We do not give up. We adapt. We survive. We remember. And now we have returned to collect what you owe us." Harin stepped forward. "This is what evolution looks like when you try to kill something that refuses to die. We are still human, but we are also something you have never seen before, something you created when you tried to destroy us." She held up her hand. The watching galaxy saw her fingers extend into sharp claws, then shift into energy manipulators, then return to normal human fingers. "You wanted us extinct," Jinha continued. "You should have made sure. Because now you face something worse than humans who want to live alongside you. Now you face humans who remember what you tried to do to us." The transmission cut out, leaving the galaxy in shocked silence. In the command center, Quan's aide stared at the blank screen. "Sir, what do we do now?" Quan thought about the files he had read, about 300 years of lies, about a species that had been betrayed and left to die. "Nothing," he said finally. "We do nothing, and we hope they show us more mercy than we showed them." On Nexus Prime, Harin and Jinha walked back to their ships as the station's population cowered in their quarters. The humans had made their point without killing a single civilian. But this was just the beginning. The fire was burning again, and the galaxy was about to learn what it meant to face a species that had spent 3 centuries growing stronger in the dark. The humans were back, and they had not forgotten. The Confederation's response was swift and angry. Within hours of the Nexus Prime rescue, emergency sessions were called on every major world. The message was the same everywhere. The human threat must be ended once and for all. Supreme Commander Valk, leader of the Confederation military, stood before the assembled leaders of 12 alien species. His forearms gestured wildly as he spoke. "Citizens! The human disease has returned. They have shown technology we do not understand. They have threatened our way of life. We must act now before they spread their chaos across the galaxy." The alien leaders nodded and made angry sounds. Fear made them stupid. They remembered the old stories about humans. Unpredictable, dangerous, impossible to control. "What do you propose?" asked the representative from the crystalline shard species. "Total war," Valk said simply. "We mobilize every ship, every weapon, every soldier. 50,000 vessels, the largest fleet in galactic history. We find their base and destroy them all. This time we make sure they are truly extinct." Harin stood in the command center of Haven Station, humanity's secret capital built inside a hollow asteroid in the Kepler void. Around her, dozens of humans worked at stations that seemed to be made of living light. Their hands moved through holographic displays that responded to thought as much as touch. "Fleet composition report," she said to her tactical officer, a young human named Day who had been born in space and had never seen a planet. "Confederation is mobilizing everything they have," Day replied. 50,000 ships from all 12 species. Enough firepower to crack a moon." Jinha, now wearing the black uniform of the Human Defense Council, walked up beside them. Just like 300 years ago. When they cannot control something, they try to destroy it. "This is different, great-grandfather," Harin said. 300 years ago, we were trying to be like them. Now we are something they cannot imagine." She turned to address the command center. "All stations prepare for Transcendence Protocol. We are going to show them what happens when you try to kill something that refuses to die. Around her, the humans began changing. It was subtle at first. Their eyes became brighter, their movements more fluid. Then the changes became more dramatic. Some grew taller, their bones strengthening to handle greater stress. Others became smaller and faster, their nervous systems accelerating beyond normal human limits. But the biggest change was not physical. It was the way they began to move and think together, like parts of a single organism. 300 years of evolution had given humanity something no other species possessed: the ability to become more than the sum of their parts. Harin felt the change happening to herself. Her consciousness expanded, connecting to the station systems, to the ships in the fleet, to every human in the void. She was still herself, but she was also part of something greater. Confederation fleet has entered the Kepler void, reported Day. 50,000 ships in standard battle formation. They are scanning for our base. Harin smiled. Let them look. They would find something, but not what they expected. Commander Quan Li stood on the bridge of the Confederation flagship Eternal Justice. Around him, officers from 6 different species worked to coordinate the massive fleet. It was the most powerful military force ever assembled, but Quan felt sick to his stomach. He had spent the past 3 days reading more classified files about the human containment operation. The more he learned, the more he understood that his people were not the heroes in this story. Commander, said his communications officer, we are detecting structures in the void, multiple large objects. Show me, Quan ordered. The main screen lit up with tactical displays. Scattered throughout the Kepler void were dozens of space stations, each one the size of a small moon. They looked ancient, built from materials that the scanners could not identify. By the ancestors, whispered the tactical officer. How long have these been here? 300 years, Quan said quietly. Maybe longer. Supreme Commander Valk's voice crackled over the communications system. All ships target the stations. Prepare to fire on my command. Quan opened his mouth to protest, then closed it. What could he say? That they were about to attack people who had done nothing wrong? That the humans were the victims, not the aggressors? Sir, said his sensor operator, the stations are responding to our presence. On the screen, the ancient-looking stations began to change. Their surfaces rippled like water, then hardened into new configurations. What had looked like old mining platforms suddenly revealed themselves as something else entirely. Weapons. Weapons that existed in dimensions the Confederation did not understand. All ships came. Valk's panicked voice. Open fire! Open fire now! 50,000 ships unleashed their weapons at once. The space around the stations filled with energy beams, missile trails, and exotic matter warheads. It was enough destruction to sterilize a dozen worlds. The human stations absorbed it all. Harin watched the Confederation attack through sensors that existed in 17 dimensions simultaneously. The alien weapons were powerful, but they were designed to fight enemies that followed the same rules they did. Humans had learned new rules. Transcendence protocol is complete, reported Day. His voice now came from everywhere and nowhere, as if he was speaking from inside the station's walls. All stations report ready. Begin the demonstration, Harin said. The human stations did not return fire immediately. Instead, they began to move. Not through space, but through something else. They folded reality around themselves, stepping sideways through dimensions that existed between the normal 3. To the Confederation fleet, it looked like the stations were teleporting randomly throughout the void. One moment they were there, the next they were gone, appearing somewhere completely different. How are they doing that? Screamed Valk over the communications channel. Ships cannot teleport. Harin opened a channel to the entire Confederation fleet. Her voice reached every ship simultaneously, speaking in perfect translation for each species. You came here to destroy us, she said, her words calm and cold. You brought 50,000 ships to finish what you started 300 years ago. But you still do not understand what you are facing. As she spoke, space around the Confederation fleet began to change. What had looked like empty void revealed itself to be something else, a maze of gravitational fields and dimensional barriers that had been invisible until now. The humans had not built bases in the Kepler void. They had turned the entire region into a weapon. We are not the same species you tried to destroy, Harin continued. We have evolved. We have adapted. We have become something you cannot fight with normal weapons. The gravitational fields activated. Confederation ships found themselves caught in invisible currents that pulled them in directions that should not exist. Ships that tried to retreat discovered they were moving toward the human stations instead of away from them. This is impossible. Valk's voice was getting higher, more desperate. Gravity does not work this way. Gravity works however we want it to work. Jinha's voice joined the transmission. Physics is just another set of rules for us to adapt to, and we have had 300 years to practice. The human stations began their real attack. Instead of weapons that destroyed ships, they used weapons that changed them. Confederation vessels found their hull plating turning into something that conducted their own energy back through their systems. Their computers began displaying messages in human writing. Their life support systems started producing air that was perfect for humans, but made the alien crews dizzy and confused. One by one, Confederation ships began to surrender, not because they were destroyed, but because they could no longer control their own vessels. Commander Quan watched in horror as half his fleet was rendered helpless by technology that seemed more like magic than science. The humans were not just winning the battle, they were rewriting the rules of how battles could be fought. His communications officer, a young alien with blue fur, looked up at him with fear in her large eyes.
Sir, what are our orders?
Quan thought about the files he had read. About 300 years of lies and betrayal. About a species that had been pushed to the edge of extinction and had come back as something unprecedented. He thought about his duty as a Confederation officer. Then he thought about his duty as a decent being. "Open a channel to all ships under my direct command," he said. "Sir?" "Do it," the channel opened. Quan took a deep breath and spoke words that would change his life forever. "This is Commander Quan Li to all ships in Battle Group 7. I am ordering you to stand down and withdraw from combat. Immediately." The bridge went silent. His officers stared at him in shock. "Sir," whispered his tactical officer, "that is treason." "No," Quan said, watching as more Confederation ships fell under human control. "Treason is what we did to them 300 years ago. This is justice." He opened another channel, this one directly to the human forces. "This is Commander Quan Li of the Confederation Peacekeeping Force. I wish to speak with your leaders. I have information about the original containment operation. Information that proves your people were betrayed." The response came immediately in Harin's voice. "Commander Li, you have 5 minutes to convince us not to send you home in pieces." Quan smiled grimly. 5 minutes to explain 3 centuries of lies. 5 minutes to maybe prevent a war that would tear the galaxy apart. 300 years ago, he began, the Confederation classified your species as a Class Omega evolutionary threat, not because you were violent but because you were advancing too quickly. They were afraid you would surpass them, so they decided to let you die. He transmitted the classified files he had discovered. These documents prove that every supply shortage, every blocked communication, every accident that befell human colonies was planned. The Confederation tried to commit genocide through neglect. There was a long silence. Then Harin's voice returned, softer now but no less dangerous. "We know, Commander. We have always known. The question is, what are you going to do about it?" Quan looked around his bridge at officers from 6 different species. Good people who had been lied to just as much as the humans had been betrayed. "I am going to help you tell the truth," he said. As if in response to his words, the human stations throughout the void began broadcasting on every frequency, in every language. The classified files that Quan had discovered were being sent to every world, every station, every ship in the galaxy. The truth about the human extinction was spreading like fire across space, and on thousands of worlds. Members of oppressed species began to ask themselves a dangerous question. If the Confederation had lied about the humans, what else had they lied about? The war was no longer just about human survival. It was about the future of the galaxy itself. The truth spread across the galaxy like wildfire. On thousands of worlds, beings watched the classified files that showed how the Confederation had tried to destroy humanity. 3 major species declared independence within days. Rebellion was growing everywhere. But Supreme Commander Valk was not finished. In the deepest vaults beneath Confederation Central Command, ancient weapons were being prepared. Weapons that had been locked away for millions of years, considered too dangerous to ever use. "You are certain this will work?" Valk asked the chief scientist, an old alien whose species had been among the first to join the Confederation. The Omega Protocol has been tested in computer simulations for 3,000 years, the scientist replied, his voice shaking with fear. It will rewrite the quantum structure of reality itself. We can make it so humans never evolved in the first place. Valk's eyes glowed with satisfaction. Then they will never have existed to threaten us. The perfect solution. The scientist's tentacles writhed nervously. Sir, you must understand. Using the Omega Protocol will affect more than just humans. It could damage the fabric of space-time itself. The consequences of not using it are worse, Valk interrupted. The humans have shown they can turn our own ships against us. They have exposed our methods to the entire galaxy. They must be stopped. Around them, technicians worked to charge the massive weapon. It looked like a sphere made of crystallized time, pulsing with energy that hurt to look at directly. When fired, it would reach back through history and erase humanity from the timeline entirely. But the humans had spent 300 years preparing for the impossible. On Haven Station, Jin-Ha stood in a room that existed in several dimensions at once. The walls showed images from across time, past, present, and possible futures all layered together. He had undergone the final human evolution. He had become a living anchor point in time itself. The Omega Protocol is almost ready, Harin reported. She looked different now. Her body seemed to shift between solid matter and pure energy. They plan to erase us from history. Jin-Ha nodded. I can see all the timelines where we lose. There are millions of them. But I can also see the few where we win. What do we need to do? Something that should be impossible even for us, Jin-Ha said. We need to exist outside of time itself. If they erase our past, we need to create a new one. Harin felt her consciousness expand even further. Around her, thousands of humans throughout the hidden fleet began the Phoenix transformation, the final evolution that would make them something beyond physical existence. But evolution always came with a price. Commander Quan Li had been placed under arrest for treason, but the brig of his ship had been modified by human technology. The walls flickered between solid metal and transparent energy. Through them, he could see space itself changing as the war escalated beyond normal physics. Quan, came Harin's voice from everywhere at once. We need your help. I am in prison, Quan replied to the empty air. How can I help anyone? The Confederation has allies who do not know the truth yet. Species who joined because they were threatened or bribed. If they knew what really happened to us, some would switch sides. A holographic display appeared in front of Quan, showing a list of species throughout the galaxy. Some were marked in red, loyal to the Confederation. Others were marked in yellow, uncertain. A few were marked in green, secret allies of humanity. The Keth Empire, Quan read from the list. They joined the Confederation 50 years ago after their home system was accidentally poisoned by industrial waste. The same industrial waste that was used against human colonies. The Confederation has been using the same methods for thousands of years. Jin-Ha's voice joined the conversation. We were just the latest victims. Help us show the others what they really joined. Quan looked at the evidence spread before him. Medical records, industrial accidents, trade disputes, all showing a pattern of control through fear and sabotage. If I do this, I can never go back to my old life. None of us can, Harin said softly. War changes everything. The question is, what kind of galaxy do you want to help create? Quan made his choice. Using the human-modified prison systems, he began transmitting evidence to species across the galaxy. Not just about humanity's betrayal, but about decades of Confederation manipulation and control. Within hours, 3 more species declared independence. The rebellion was becoming a revolution. The Omega Protocol fired just as Harin completed her transformation into pure adaptive energy. The weapon's blast reached back through time, trying to erase humanity's evolutionary history. But it found nothing to erase. The humans had done something impossible. They had stepped outside of time itself. Jin-Ha, existing as a temporal anchor across all possible timelines, watched the weapon's energy wash harmlessly around humanity's new existence. They were no longer bound by normal causality. They had become something that could not be erased because they existed in the spaces between moments. "Impossible!" screamed Valk, as reports came in that the humans were still there, still fighting, still spreading rebellion across the galaxy. "Nothing is impossible," Haren's voice replied, coming from the Confederation's own communication systems. "You just have not learned how to think beyond your limitations yet." Around Confederation Central Command, space itself began to change. The humans were not attacking with weapons, they were rewriting the rules of reality in real time. Gravity flowed upward. Light moved in spirals. Time moved backward in some places and forward in others. The Confederation fleet found themselves fighting a war where the very concept of war kept changing. On the bridge of his modified prison ship, Quan watched the impossible battle unfold. The humans were not trying to destroy their enemies. They were trying to transform them. Confederation ships found their weapon systems converting into communication arrays. Their military computers began displaying art and music instead of tactical data. "What are they doing?" asked one of his guards, an alien who had started questioning orders after seeing the evidence of Confederation lies. "They are showing us what they could have been," Quan said, understanding flooding through him. "If we had not tried to destroy them 300 years ago, they would have been explorers, artists, teachers. Instead, we forced them to become warriors." A new transmission came through on all frequencies. This time, it was not just Ha-Rin or Jin-Ha speaking. It was thousands of human voices speaking as one. "We did not want this war. We wanted to share the stars with you. But you chose fear over friendship. You chose control over cooperation. Now you face the consequences of that choice." Images flooded every screen in the galaxy, not of human weapons or threats, but of human achievements. Cities built inside asteroids where families could live safely. Art that existed in dimensions beyond normal sight. Music that could heal broken minds. Technology that could turn barren worlds into gardens. "This is what we offered you 300 years ago," the human voice continued. "This is what you threw away when you decided we were too dangerous to exist, but we are still willing to share it with you." The message changed, becoming personal to each listener. To the Keth Empire, humans offered technology to heal their poisoned worlds. To the crystal beings of the Shard species, humans offered new ways to grow and shape their living cities. To every oppressed species, humans offered something they had never had before: true equality. "But if you choose war," the message concluded, "you will face something you cannot defeat. We have become adaptation itself. Every weapon you create, we will turn against you. Every strategy you devise, we will surpass. Every rule you follow, we will rewrite." Across the galaxy, Confederation loyalists faced a choice that would define the future. Some chose to keep fighting, driven by fear and old prejudices. But others chose to stop and listen. Supreme Commander Valk stood in his command center as reports poured in of more defections, more rebellions, more species choosing humanity over the Confederation. Half his fleet had simply stopped fighting, their crews refusing to attack beings who offered healing instead of conquest. "Sir," said his aide, "the weapon systems on 17 ships have been converted into medical facilities. The crews are using them to help wounded soldiers from both sides." Valk's 4 arms shook with rage. "This is not how war works. Enemies do not heal each other." "Maybe that is the point," said a quiet voice behind him. Valk spun around to see Jin-Ha standing in his command center. But this was not the old human who had been imprisoned on Nexus Prime. This Jin-Ha existed in several dimensions at once, his form shifting between solid matter and living light. "How are you here?" Valk demanded. "My security systems are impenetrable." "Your security systems are designed to stop enemies who follow the same rules you do," Jin-Ha replied. "We have learned new rules." Around them, the command center began to change. The walls showed not tactical displays, but scenes of peace from across the galaxy. Species working together, building instead of destroying, creating instead of conquering. "This is what we wanted to show you 300 years ago," Jin-Ha said. This is the galaxy we dreamed of creating together, but you were too afraid of losing control to let us try. Valk reached for his weapon, but his hand passed right through it. Jinha had not disarmed him, he had simply made violence impossible in this space. You have a choice to make, Supreme Commander. You can keep fighting a war you cannot win against an enemy who refuses to be your enemy, or you can help us build something better. For the first time in his long military career, Valk hesitated. Around him, his own officers were staring at the images of peace and cooperation, seeing possibilities they had never imagined. The war was no longer about human survival or Confederation dominance. It was about what kind of galaxy they would choose to create together. The galaxy was burning, not with fire but with change. Half the Confederation had collapsed as member species learned the truth about humanity's betrayal. Wars erupted on dozens of worlds as populations rose against leaders who had lied to them for centuries. But victory was coming at a price that threatened to destroy everything humans had fought to preserve. Harin floated in the center of Haven Station, no longer fully solid. Her body shifted between matter and energy, between human form and something that existed in dimensions beyond normal space. She could reshape reality with a thought, bend time with her will, but with each use of her power, she felt herself becoming less human. "Status report," she said, her voice echoing from everywhere at once. Day, her tactical officer, looked up from displays that now responded to brainwaves instead of touch. His eyes glowed with an inner light that had not been there weeks ago. 17 more systems have joined the rebellion. The Keth Empire is sharing our medical technology with former Confederation colonies. The Shard cities are growing new homes for refugee populations. And our forces? Day hesitated. That is complicated. Through her expanded consciousness, Harin could see what he meant. The human soldiers returning from battles were changed. They had adapted so completely to warfare that they struggled to be anything else. Some could not turn off their ability to phase through solid matter. Others had become so connected to their ships that they could not exist apart from them. They were becoming living weapons instead of living people. "Bring me Major Ko," Harin ordered. Major Ko had led the assault on 3 Confederation strongholds. When he materialized in the command center, Harin barely recognized him. His skin had a metallic sheen that reflected laser light. His eyes had adapted to see across 17 different spectrums simultaneously. His hands could reshape themselves into any tool or weapon he needed. "Major, how do you feel?" Harin asked. Ko tilted his head, processing the question through enhanced neural networks that calculated thousands of possibilities per second. "I feel efficient," he said finally. "Perfect for war. But when I try to remember what I felt like before the evolution, there is nothing there." Harin felt a chill that had nothing to do with temperature. "Show me the others." Ko led her through the station to where the evolved soldiers rested between missions. They moved with mechanical precision. Their conversations focused entirely on tactical analysis and weapon efficiency. They had become everything they needed to be to win the war, but they were forgetting how to be human. Jinha existed across all timelines simultaneously, watching every possible future unfold in his mind. In most of them, humanity won the war but lost themselves. They became the very thing they had fought against, a species that ruled through superior force, forgotten what it meant to care about anything beyond power. "We are becoming monsters," said a voice behind him. Jinha turned to see Dr. Yun, one of the original colonists who had refused the combat evolutionary protocols. She looked exactly as humans had 3 centuries ago, fragile, limited, purely biological. Next to the evolved humans, she seemed impossibly weak. "Not monsters," Jinha corrected. "Just something else. Something that might not be human anymore." "Is winning worth it if we lose what made us worth saving in the first place?" Jinha showed her the timelines he could see. "In 73% of possible futures, we complete our evolution into beings of pure adaptive potential. We become the most powerful species in the galaxy. We also become incapable of love, art, or any emotion beyond strategic calculation. And in the other futures, we choose to remain human. In most of those timelines, the Confederation eventually destroys us. In a few, we find a balance. But those futures," Jinha's temporal sight flickered, "those futures are getting harder to see." Dr. Yun looked out at space through a window that existed in 17 dimensions. "What if we gave them a choice? Our people, I mean, What if we let them decide between winning as something else or remaining human and accepting the risks? Jinha considered this. Across all timelines, he had never seen that possibility explored. It would be unprecedented. Evolution is usually involuntary. But we are not a usual species, Dr. Yun replied. That is the whole point, is it not? Commander Quan Li stood on the bridge of his ship, which had been completely transformed by human technology. The walls were alive, responding to his thoughts and emotions. The crew was a mix of alien species who had chosen to join the human cause, not because they feared human power, but because they believed in human ideals. Commander, said his communications officer, a young Keth whose purple skin was still healing from chemical burns caused by Confederation weapons. We are receiving reports from the front lines. The humans are changing. Quan nodded grimly. He had seen it too. Human soldiers who could adapt to any environment, counter any weapon, overcome any obstacle. They were becoming unstoppable. They were also becoming unrecognizable. Open a channel to Harin, Quan ordered. Harin's form appeared as a hologram, flickering between her original human appearance and the energy being she was becoming. Commander Quan, what can I do for you? I need to ask you something difficult, Quan said. Are you still fighting for humanity, or have you evolved beyond caring about humans? The question hung in the air between them. Harin was silent for a long moment, her form stabilizing into something that looked almost entirely human again. I remember being a little girl, she said finally. I remember my grandmother telling me stories about Earth, about blue skies and green grass, about people who laughed and cried and made mistakes and learned from them. I remember wanting to be like those people. Her form flickered back toward pure energy. But I also remember watching my parents die when the Confederation cut off medical supplies to our colony. I remember hiding in asteroids for months, eating recycled air and drinking condensed sweat. I remember promising myself that no human child would ever have to live that way again. And now I can prevent that. I can reshape reality to protect every human who will ever be born. But to do it, I have to stop being the kind of person who would have comforted that little girl who lost her parents. Quan felt his heart break for her. There has to be another way. Maybe, Harin said, but finding it might require giving up the power to guarantee our survival. Are you willing to risk human extinction on maybe? Before Quan could answer, alarms began sounding throughout his ship. The Confederation's final weapon was not a device, it was an idea. In secret facilities across their remaining territory, they had been developing something called the Genesis Reset. It would not just erase humanity from history. It would return the entire galaxy to the state it had been in before intelligent life evolved. Every species would have to start over. Evolution would begin again from the beginning. It was the ultimate act of spite. If the Confederation could not rule the galaxy, no one could. Supreme Commander Valk stood in the control chamber as his scientists made final preparations. Are you certain this will work? The Genesis Reset will affect every living thing in the galaxy, the chief scientist replied. All intelligent species will be reduced to their pre-evolutionary state. The galaxy will be a blank slate, and after, when evolution begins again, we have prepared genetic seeds that will ensure Confederation species evolve first and fastest. We will have millions of years to establish dominance before any potential rivals develop. Valk smiled with all four of his mouths. Then we will create a galaxy where humans never have the chance to threaten us, where no species can challenge our authority. The Genesis Reset began charging. Unlike previous weapons, this one could not be stopped or redirected. It would tear apart the very structure of evolutionary development across the entire galaxy. But as the weapon powered up, Valk received an unexpected transmission. Harin's voice filled the Genesis Reset control chamber, speaking directly from the weapon's own systems. Supreme Commander Valk, I know what you are planning. You want to reset evolution itself, giving your species a head start in rebuilding civilization. Valk snarled at the screens. You cannot stop us, human. This weapon exists outside your dimensional manipulations. I am not here to stop you, Harin replied, her voice strangely calm. I am here to make you an offer. The chamber fell silent except for the humming of the charging weapon. You want to create a galaxy where humans never threaten you. But what if humans chose not to be a threat? What if we chose to give up our evolved abilities and return to what we were? Lies, Valk spat. Your species does not know how to be anything but dangerous. Then let us prove you wrong. Harin's image appeared in the chamber, not as the energy being she had become, but as she had been at the start of the war. Fully human, vulnerable mortal, I am offering you something unprecedented, she said, the voluntary de-evolution of humanity. We will give up our adaptive abilities, our dimensional technology, our temporal anchors. We will return to being the species you first met centuries ago. Explorers, dreamers, builders. In exchange for what? The same chance you are giving yourselves. When you reset the galaxy, include us in your genetic seeds. Let humanity evolve naturally alongside everyone else. No advantages, no special abilities, just the chance to grow and learn and become whatever we choose to become. Valk stared at her. You would give up all your power, your ability to reshape reality, your guarantee of survival, to prove that humans can choose hope over fear, cooperation over domination? Harin smiled, and for the first time in months it was a completely human smile. Yes, and if we refuse? Harin's form began to shift back toward pure energy. Then you will face something that cannot be reset, cannot be erased, and will never stop adapting. Choose wisely, Supreme Commander. The Genesis reset weapon reached full charge. Valk stood with his hand over the firing control, facing a choice that would determine the fate of every living thing in the galaxy. Behind him, his own officers waited to see what kind of future he would create. The future where fear ruled everything, or the future where even humans were willing to give up everything for the chance to build something better.